Hello, everyone, and welcome to Classical Revolution here on IDAGIO. My name is Rachel Fenlon, and I'm your host of the series here. For those of you tuning in for the first time today, this series is all about kind of breaking the rules and pushing boundaries in the classical music genre. And every week, I'm joined by a special guest, usually people who just really personally inspire me, people who I feel are really visionaries in this kind of thinking in the genre. And today is no exception. I'm really thrilled to be joined by soprano Sarah Maria Sun. She's one of the foremost interpreters and performers of the contemporary music world. With over 300 world premieres under her belt, she has an extensive and vast repertoire in the 20th and 21st century music. She has close collaborations with some of the most prolific composers like Lachenmann and Bernhard Lang. And she's performed, her international career takes her from Berlin Philharmonic, the Zurich Tonhalle Orchestra, to Elbphilharmonie, Tokyo, Ensemble Modern, and she also, her operatic career is from Zurich Opera House, Paris, Munich, and Frankfurt. And she has also a wonderful recording career with over 30 albums. And actually today we've linked her full discography underneath this episode. So I urge you to check it out. I also created a little playlist of some of my favorite pieces that Sarah Maria Sun has recorded. And on top of all of this, all of these accolades, she also arranges music herself, and she has her own band. So please welcome Sarah Maria Sun. Hi, Sarah.
Hi, Rachel. Wow, you're doing this so sweet.
Thank you so much for being here. It's really wonderful to have you.
Oh, it's a pleasure. Thank you so much for inviting me.
Cool. So I'd like to just begin by asking straight off the bat what your first interaction with music was, and even moreover, whether there was a particular musical moment or even a musical sound that sort of stays with you and that's carried you.
So I started music when I was 3, I think, because my mother brought me to a Musikschule, to a music school for kids. And then, well, she said, when I came back, my head was just red like a tomato, and I was so excited, and I was just over the top all the time. So she thought, wow, she's having fun. And then when I was 5, I decided I want to play the guitar. And she said, no, can't you play the recorder? Because that's much cheaper. And I said, no, it must be the guitar. And then I started to play the classical guitar, and it soon made a huge curve upwards. And I did so many competitions when I was a kid. And then with 9, I decided I want to sing as well. And when I was like 17, I did my baccalaureate, my Abitur. I finished high school, and I had studied classical guitar already parallel to doing school with a professor in Essen in Germany. Mm-hmm. And then somehow the repertoire of the classical guitar had come to an end for me. So that there were, of course, a couple of more pieces to do, but yeah, that was it. So then I thought, no, I go for singing, because, well, the repertoire for singers is just endless. Yeah, so that's how it started.
Okay, and sort of what's so wonderful about what you do is your dedication to contemporary music, and what brought you there exactly? Because that's not a straight and narrow path usually to contemporary music. So what kind of led you in that direction?
So I had really good teachers. Most of the time it's teachers that connect you to something. And mm-hmm. I had good teachers in Cologne, Thomas Wise, an American lead professor who introduced us to all the American contemporary music, but more of the 20th century. And that was thrilling, of course. Bernstein, even Barber or Kurt Weill, all the musicals by him, and then also the German early works from the 20s, blah, blah, blah. And then in Stuttgart, a teacher introduced me to Ligeti's works. And that was like mind-blowing for me, because I thought I will become an opera singer. But when you see Ligeti's scores and you see how complex they are and how many layers they are and how characters mock certain opera cliches that I had never understood in my life, or I had never understood how people can take that stuff seriously. And I was always a bit bored by this repetition of the same story, and the reduced picture opera paints of women. And then you see Ligeti's works, and that's just opening up the world and the modern world to you. So I knew immediately, yeah, that's my language. That's the time I live in. That's how I receive information from the world. It's very complex. I can't make up my mind about it. It's far too complex for me, the world, to understand it. And Ligeti's scores are so multi-layered that it's too much of an impact for the audience. And you can listen to it 10 times or 100 times, and you will find new bits of information and new moments to laugh about or to cry about every time. So yeah, that was that. From then on, I knew, okay, that's where I want to go.
Wow. That's so beautifully put as well. Just this idea about processing the world and doing that through music. You're also very dedicated to song, to contemporary song, which I think is also super special, because often we're doing contemporary opera or larger works, but you're kind of doing this small form. I was thinking it would be interesting to ask you about that, and to ask you about, like, how do you feel contemporary art song differs from our traditional sort of song of Mahler and Schubert and Schumann? What do you feel the differences are? Do you feel there are differences in contemporary lead versus more traditional lead?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, in the contemporary lead, there are hundreds of thousands of different forms that composers experiment with. And in the times before the 21st century, it's an equivalent to the development of humanity with all its technology and the development of technology. Like, everything was going step by step for a very long time, and not very much did change. But then suddenly, after the Second World War, and or let's say from the industrialization onwards, it's just exponentially growing and exploding in every direction. And of course, in music, it's the same. So nowadays, composers do so many things and everything. You cannot say, okay, I listened to 100 pieces of contemporary music, so now I know how the sound is. No, you have no clue. I have no clue, because every time a composer writes a new piece, he tries out new combinations of collaging material. And we have no rules, we have no boundaries anymore, and that's the great thing. So with lead, it's the same. When I don't know if you sang a Got Lost by Helmut Lachenmann, for instance, or so this is just fantastic how he knitted together those two instruments and build, like with his own words, he builds a new instrument with each piece he creates from the instrumentation he's using. So he sees every piece like building one new complete instrument with a piece. And Got Lost is a wonderful example where you cannot you cannot trennen, separate voice and piano anymore, because each is complementing the other, and then together they reach perfection. So this is completely, it's a totally different approach than Schubert had with his Lieder. So for Schubert, there are two instruments, and you have the voice, and it's singing most of the time a pseudo folk song material, which is an art song material he created, and you have an accompaniment. Basta. This is not anymore the case in 21st century music.
Yeah, I mean, especially this idea of really collaging and trying things. Kind of this, it's very experimental, right? Yeah, that's another question would be also, I was wondering, two other things about this particular subject would be, do you feel that there's a difference in the vocal, like how do you feel the differences singing between these? I mean, because for example, you've sung the Messiaen, which is, I would say, much more kind of traditional vocal singing, and then you have your pieces of really extended vocal technique, and what's that, navigating those two things like for you?
So it starts in the brain. You just have to be strategical. You have to really plan your days and your weeks and the year. And you have to plan each day, because you need to know what you want to do when. So that's the biggest task. So I need to know when I rehearse what, how many hours, and with which pieces I start. And if I can't do it my way, I need to save voice. I need to be really smart and clever and responsible with my voice. And then, so far, I expanded my boundaries so much over the last 20 years. I think there was rarely a moment when I knew, okay, now that there's the stop, there's a halt. I had it once when a director asked me to scream so loud on the stage, and I had a part where there was lots of screaming, acted screaming, against a full orchestra playing fortissimo. And then I had to sing very, very high notes, high E, high C, high D for a very long time, also full power. And after 6 weeks of rehearsals, 1 week before the premiere, I had a ödem.
Oh gosh.
My voice was gone for 4 weeks. I couldn't say a word. So that was the only time in my life. And then I just didn't speak, I didn't talk, didn't even whisper for 4 weeks, and it went away. So far, no operation, no medical treatment in my life. So that's it, really.
Well, I guess that's also something to be said about you being so organized about it, about planning, knowing your instrument, and then planning the repertoire and planning where the overlap is.
Yeah. And just training. So I have still 2 coaches I work with, and I work on my bel canto technique with them. So they are really cleaning and polishing everything out. So this gets better and better. I think my technique for normal repertoire is now getting to a point where I think, okay, now I could also sing a Schubert song really well.
Yes.
So it takes a long while to balance everything and to get to a certain niveau, and then to know, can I sing this piece on my niveau, on even if I'm sick or if I have not my best day, can I sing it on a certain niveau? Can I sing the other stuff there too? So that's the work.
Yeah. Do you ever improvise? I know you do arranging. You arranged a lot in your last album, but I was curious if you do a lot of improvising.
I did improvisation sessions from time to time. I was never a fan of it. It just
Okay.
last month or the month before, I decided I stopped with improvisations. I don't do it anymore. I just make a cut with that.
Yeah.
I'm not satisfied with it. I have some colleagues I admire so much for their improvisation qualities. It's amazing. So Marco Blau, Helen Blatt, so many of the people, Carl Rosman, people from the Musikfabrik, they are great improvisers, Johannes Fischer, then some of the classical scene as well, and all the jazz musicians are amazing. But in the contemporary vocal music, for me, just my personal opinion, okay? It's not the truth. It's just my truth, my opinion.
Yeah.
It has a certain narcissistic touch. It feels always like masturbation with the stuff you think you know or you can do best, and then, okay, if you go to the point where you have no control anymore, it's even more narcissistic because you make people watch your ripping up yourself and showing them all your weaknesses and flaws, and it's masturbation in a way in front of people. I find it disgusting. I never feel comfortable with it.
Okay.
It's a different thing than jazz musicians, because jazz musicians listen and have other forms and structures they can work in and create.
Yeah. I mean, I'm glad I asked you because it's a very interesting answer. But yeah, because it is such a fine line, and I completely agree with you. In a lot of ways, I agree with you. So but I was just curious because it would make sense, of course, that you improvised over the years.
And sorry if I'm a talker. You can see that.
No, it's perfect. Love it.
You ask me a question, I talk forever.
Thank you.
One more thing I really dislike with improvisation is, I sang so many pieces in the past 25 years, and so many interesting things crossed my path. And I don't know if there's a certain sound I never produced with my voice. I don't think so. I know that there are many, many, many ways to put the sounds I can do together to create an interesting story, a sound story that I don't know yet. That's interesting for me. Stories that people make up because they have a certain important message, and I am the medium to tell the message with my sounds. If I improvise, I can only tell my story that I can make up in 1 second or a split of a second in my mind. And really, really, I don't think that this is very interesting. Sorry, but I don't think it's good.
Yeah.
I don't think it has quality. I just think it sucks.
Tell us how you really feel. No, no, it's great. I mean, especially this idea and that how you were so compelled towards this idea of storytelling with music. And that kind of leads me into another question that I wanted to ask you anyway, which was about commissioning repertoire. And first, how long have you been commissioning for? And also, what do you look for in a piece? What do you like? I mean, how often do you commission? I mean, I'm sure composers just generally want to write for you, but are there ever times that you ask someone to write something for you? And if so, what are you looking for in a piece?
So I commissioned personally a couple of pieces, but not many. Most of the time, the procedure is a composer approaches me, or I approach a composer, or we just talk and get an idea, get an inspirational moment, and say, okay, we want to work together. And then together we look for a festival, or for an opera house, or for anybody, for a Stiftung, to get a commission. So that's how it works. I know that the Arditi Quartet, for instance, they commissioned thousands of pieces. They are just incredible. I think they played much more than 1,000 commissioned pieces. But they started in the 80s, where money was still in the market, and where recording CDs was still getting an income, creating income for you. This was completely different times, really. So that's how they could build up this enormous, wonderful repertoire for string quartet. In my generation, when I started working, it was already much harder. Everything had shrunk so much. But I was very lucky because I got this job with the Neue Vokalsolisten.
Yeah.
And because this is a company and they cooperate with so many other companies and festivals and organizers, they could commission a lot. And for 7 years, I had the great chance, and I was really lucky to work with them. And there I learned to know so much repertoire. That was amazing. And now I'm only on my own, and I have partners, I have colleagues that I favor, and I ask composers if they want to write something, and then we go on a journey together, and we look how we can find a place and a venue to do it.
Cool. How political do you feel being an artist is? Is this something, do you feel like we have a certain role that we need to shape for ourselves in society, or does that enter, or does it come for you from a more emotional place? Or it's just something I like to ask people because everyone has different answers to that.
So in my opinion, you cannot deny that you play a certain tiny role in a certain system, social system, which is formed and shaped by political decisions, and the other way around, and by economical decisions by a political system. If you deny that you have a certain responsibility for that, and that what you talk about as personality in the open, then I think you lose an opportunity. And also, it's a bit lazy. It's a lazy decision, in my opinion. It's not about telling people vote for this party, although I'm telling openly for which party I vote or stand. But talking or being a political person does not mean that you tell people what they do. I think the opposite should be the case. You should just try to find ways to express what you understand are the questions to rise or to ask.
Oh, I love that.
So when I did Killer Instincts, I knew I want to create an album that asks questions about ideologism. So why is why are suddenly so many people in the world voting again for right-winged parties? Why are they following demagogues again? That's just something that's going on in my mind all the time, because I read the news and I'm concerned about certain things. So, and I was looking for a fun way to talk about it musically.
Which you achieved.
Thank you. Yeah, that's how you can act politically as a musician.
Yeah.
Ask questions, but in a fun way. Don't try to give answers. Binsenweisheit.
That's, I really love that. Just ask the questions and do it openly. And yeah, I mean, you're exploring it too. And talking about your most recent album, which for everyone who's watching, it's actually not released on IDAGIO yet, but there are clips of it on YouTube that you can check. But they wrote me today saying that it will be released on IDAGIO very soon. So I think in the next weeks. And I'm curious, this is such a cool album because you have everything from Tom Waits to Bernstein to Schubert, I mean, and in this really cool arrangement with your band. And I'm just would love to ask you about what it's like, kind of, how do you maintain that flexibility between genres and in this album?
So I think just because I love each song so much, I was looking for the right combination of songs for more than a year. So I asked many people and friends and my label chef and all the friends and colleagues, just send me songs. If you know songs about this and that, please send them to me. And then I had such a big list, and then I reduced it. And I listened to all those songs so often, and many of them I knew from my childhood. So, and when I was a student, I earned my money from time to time with singing in a variety as a conférencieuse. So the musical numbers brought me a bit back to that. And the pop and rock is something that is connected to my father. And to my husband, because he loves rock music. And so I feel connected to each of the songs by different routes that I spread in my life. And that's, I think it works from the emotions, from the guts. And of course I know what to do with my instrument here. So it's a combination.
Yeah, it's so cool. And also the band, I mean, how did that come about? It's such an interesting besetzung arrangement of instruments. And how did the band form?
So I knew I want to do this album with Jan Philipp Schulze, because he's just my favorite Liedbegleiter and accompanist, and I just love him to death. So we wanted to do this together. And then I thought, okay, I think I need definitely a guitar, and Hubert Steiner is amazing because he's just insane. He plays like not only all kinds of guitars, but also the banjo, the mandolin, the drum set. He can play drums and percussion. He can sing. He even played in a marching band. And I think he can play the trumpet as well or something. So he's just crazy. So I knew, okay, I need Hubert. If I do this, I need Hubert. Because we did so much on the album with overdubs. So you play something and then you record again over the things you played already.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
So, for instance, the number "Glitter and Be Gay."
Yes.
With the banjo.
Yeah, this is so.
Yeah, Hubert played it like in hundreds of overdubs. He
Oh,
was he's insane. It was amazing. He created this whole fucking song, just him alone. It's incredible. Yeah, and then we needed a drummer, of course. So I found
mhm.
Bernd through some recommendations. And Axel Nitz, the saxophone player, is a very old friend of mine.
Okay.
And he learned to play the baritone saxophone only for this album. He never
Wow.
played it ever before in his life. So that was really a friendship thing. Yeah,
Wow.
that was
And
fun.
do you think you'll do more projects together? I mean, now that you've done, does it kind of open up a world, or do you feel like it was just specifically for this? Or
So at the moment, I'm creating a new album with another person, with a friend, and it will be an pop, electronical pop album.
okay.
So different sound again. It will be again very politically in the texts, but with
Okay.
new texts. The texts are written by a friend from the States for us, and it will be arranged and played later on for a small orchestra. So I'm heading again for one album in this direction, and then I plan another album that's close to Killer Instincts from the arrangements, but it will be released probably in 2 or 3 years from now.
Okay.
And but then meanwhile I will do like I think 3 other albums that are more classical contemporary stuff, so it's again a big mix.
Amazing. It's amazing. Yeah. Also, I mean, for a time where, as you said, the recording industry has its limitations, what is it about making a recording for you that is still feels vital? I
I
mean,
wish I would know. I can't help myself. It's just I need to do it.
yeah.
It's like, I don't know, a painter paints on a canvas, although he has no money to pay the oil or the acrylic pasters, and he just has to do it, and he never knows if he earns a penny with it. And I think it's the same with the
Mhm,
albums. So for the last 2 albums I paid them myself, and
mhm.
it cost me really a lot of money. So that was like 36,000 euros that I paid for the 2 last albums, just myself. So
Oh,
I was I was totally broke afterwards, because then Corona started.
oh, great. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, and but oh, what the fuck! So I'm so happy that they are out there, and I don't know, if people have fun listening to them, I'm happy. I think
Exactly.
it was worth it, and yeah,
Well,
I
it
don't.
also it
Yeah,
sounds also that you enjoy the process. I mean, some people don't enjoy recording, so it also sounds that it's something that you feel.
yeah. Oh, I love it.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's really interesting. Cool.
I love it. I hate to hear my voice when I have to do the editing and cutting and listen to it millions of times. I just hate it. And I can never hear any of my CDs afterwards. If
Oh
people
no.
just play it when I'm around, I just freak out. It's torture, because I hear all my flaws. It's horrible. All my mistakes. But I love recording.
I understand. I understand. So we're kind of almost running out of time, even though I could talk to you for ages. So maybe I just have to have you back. But I definitely want to make sure I ask you kind of the question, which, you know, hence the title of the series, which is talking about revolution, evolution. Um, And I wanted to ask you, when has music felt revolutionary for you?
Ooh. Poo, poo, poo. So I don't think there is the possibility to create a revolution with one piece of music. Per coincidence, perhaps sometimes certain music went hand in hand with some social movements or something, but every revolution is created from tiny steps, and tiny drops. Well, for me, I had some revolutionary moments in my personal life. So when I discovered Ligeti, or when I sang Berio's pieces for the first time, especially Labyrinthos, Sinfonia, and Arone. When I sang Nono, Intoleranza for the first time, when I heard Prometeo for the first time, and so on. There are certain moments that really changed my knowledge and my way of feeling. I discovered new possibilities to work with text, spoken voice, and music and singing. So for me personally, that was revolutionary.
Yeah. Nice. It's an interesting, it always gets so many different answers because it can be so personal.
Yeah.
For me, it's also, so it's very interesting. Sarah, thank you so much for being here and for making time and sharing all your thoughts.
Yeah. Thanks
on
for
yourself.
asking me.
Yeah, it was so nice. Nice to have you.
Pleasure. Thank you so much, Rachel. And thank you for doing this series. That's wonderful, really. So I wish you the best of luck for this series. And I feel really honored and happy that you had me there.
Oh, I mean, you're definitely one of the people you have to have on this series if you're gonna. So, yeah, super nice to have. And to all of you who tuned in, really check out Sarah Maria Sun's work, and the playlist and the discography, and yeah, you will be like very taken on a really exciting journey. So thank you so much again, Sarah.
Thanks, Rachel.
And see you all next Wednesday.